What happens when a Hollywood legend known for saying exactly what he thinks sits across from a panel that doesn't usually get shut down, and decides today is the day he's had enough? Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks, and like and comment for more talk show coverage. Whoopi leans forward with that familiar half-smile, papers in her hand, the audience already buzzing because Harrison Ford is sitting there in a simple jacket, relaxed but alert, arms loosely crossed, eyes scanning the table like he's clocking the rhythm of the room before stepping into it. Whoopi says, "All right, so Harrison Ford is here. You know him, you love him. Actor, producer, pilot, environmental activist." The audience applauds, loud and warm. Harrison gives a small nod, lifts a hand briefly. "Thank you. Appreciate it." Whoopi chuckles. "You still uncomfortable with all that praise?" He shrugs. "I've survived worse." Laughter breaks out. Joy laughs a little too loud. Sunny smiles, waiting. Sarah nods, clearly excited. Alyssa glances at Harrison like she's trying to read him already. Whoopi says, "You're here talking about your new episode, but also, because we know you don't do press like everyone else, you always bring opinions." Harrison smiles, but it doesn't quite reach his eyes. "I answer questions. That's usually how this works." Audience murmurs lightly. Whoopi waves a hand. "Fair enough, fair enough. But you've been outspoken lately about Hollywood, about politics, about what actors should and shouldn't talk about." Harrison exhales slowly. "I've been saying the same thing for decades." Sunny jumps in, leaning forward. "But people feel like now you sound frustrated. Like there's anger." Harrison looks at her directly. "There's concern. Those aren't the same thing." Audience gives a small ooh. Whoopi lifts her eyebrows. "Okay, but concern comes from somewhere. And some people think." Harrison cuts in, not aggressively, but firmly. "Some people always think something." The audience laughs, but it's cautious. Whoopi smiles, but her tone sharpens just a touch. "Well, that's our job here. To ask." Harrison nods. "And it's mine to answer honestly." Joy jumps in. "But honestly, Harrison, don't you think celebrities inserting themselves into every issue?" Harrison turns to her. "I think citizens insert themselves. Some of them happen to be actors." Applause ripples through the crowd. Joy starts to respond, but Whoopi lifts a finger. "Hold on, let's slow it down." She turns back to Harrison. "You've been critical of Hollywood chasing trends, being performative. Some people took that as a shot at younger actors." Harrison shakes his head. "No, it's a shot at systems. If someone feels hit, maybe they should ask why." Audience reacts again, louder this time. Sarah says, "But do you think that tone alienates people who might agree with you?" Harrison pauses, choosing words carefully. "If agreement requires me to soften the truth, then it wasn't agreement to begin with." The audience applauds, a bit longer now. Whoopi laughs under her breath. "You see why we wanted you here." Harrison smiles faintly. "I figured." Whoopi leans back, crosses her arms. "But here's where I'm going to push back. You say truth like it's singular. But there are lived experiences." Harrison nods. "Absolutely." Whoopi continues. "And when you say things like Hollywood is pretending, some people hear dismissal." Harrison's jaw tightens slightly. "I'm not dismissing people. I'm dismissing bullshit." The audience gasps, then laughs, then applauds all at once. Whoopi's eyes widen. "All right, language." Harrison doesn't blink. "It's morning. I restrain myself." Laughter breaks the tension, but Whoopi doesn't laugh this time. She studies him. "Okay," she says slowly. "But let's talk about responsibility. You have a massive platform. When you say something, it lands harder." Harrison leans forward for the first time. "That doesn't mean I'm obligated to make everyone comfortable." Audience applause grows louder. Sunny jumps in. "But there's a difference between discomfort and harm." Harrison turns to her. "Yes, and conflating the two is dangerous." The room shifts. You can feel it. Even the audience quiets a little. Whoopi taps the table lightly. "See, this is where I think you're oversimplifying." Harrison looks back at her. "I don't think I am." Whoopi's tone firms up. "You're saying people are too sensitive." Harrison shakes his head. "No, I'm saying conversations are being shut down by fear of offense." Joy nods vigorously. "Exactly." Whoopi cuts her off. "No, let him finish." Harrison continues. "If every disagreement is treated like an attack, then nothing moves forward." Whoopi leans in. "But who decides what's an attack?" Harrison answers instantly. "Intent matters. Context matters. And sometimes," he pauses, looks directly at Whoopi, "sometimes people project." The audience reacts sharply. A mix of gasps and applause. Whoopi straightens. Are you saying I'm projecting? Harrison doesn't raise his voice. Doesn't smile either. I'm saying it happens to all of us. There's a beat of silence. Sarah shifts in her seat. Sunny presses her lips together. Whoopi laughs once short. Okay, but you're sitting here, a powerful man in Hollywood. Harrison interrupts, more forced this time. Enough. The audience audibly reacts. Whoopi blinks. Excuse me? Harrison sits back, hands open on the table. Enough labeling me before listening to me. The studio is dead quiet. He continues, calm but unmistakably firm. I didn't come here to be put in a box so my words can be filtered through it. Whoopi crosses her arms. Nobody's boxing you in. Harrison meets her gaze. Then stop framing everything I say as something it's not. Audience applause swells, then tapers off. Whoopi exhales, clearly irritated now. You're on a debate show. Harrison nods. I know. And debates require good faith. The tension hangs thick. Even Joy looks uncomfortable. Whoopi leans back, shakes her head slightly. All right, we're going to take a breath. She turns to the camera briefly. When we come back, Harrison cuts in, not loud but unyielding. I'm not finished. The audience erupts. Whoopi looks stunned for half a second before masking it. We're live television. Harrison says, so am I. The camera lingers. The crowd noise doesn't stop. And you can feel, unmistakably, that this conversation is no longer following the usual script. The applause keeps rolling longer than anyone expects, and Whoopi raises a hand to calm the audience. But even she's smiling tightly now, like she knows this moment is slipping a little out of her control. She clears her throat. Okay, Harrison, finish your thought. Harrison nods once, appreciative but not softening. Thank you. What I was saying is, if we can't talk honestly without immediately assuming the worst intent, then we're not having conversations. We're performing them. A few people clap again, slower this time. Sunny leans in measured. But you understand why people are sensitive right now. There's a lot of history. Harrison turns to her. I understand history very well. That's why I don't treat disagreement like violence. The audience lets out another collective reaction. Not quite applause, not quite shock. Whoopi interjects. Nobody said violence. Harrison looks back at her. It's implied when words are treated as wounds. Whoopi opens her mouth, then closes it, choosing another angle. So let me ask you this. Do you think your generation sometimes dismisses how much progress has been made because it didn't happen your way? That lands. The audience quiets again. Harrison chuckles under his breath, shakes his head. I don't think progress belongs to a generation. I think it belongs to people who do the work. Joy jumps in, pointing lightly. But you're still benefiting from a system that favored you. Harrison looks at her steadily. And I've spent decades trying to change parts of it. Joy frowns. But is that enough? Harrison pauses, then answers carefully. It's honest. Whoopi folds her hands. Honest doesn't always mean sufficient. Harrison nods. True. But it's a start. And lately, starting seems to scare people more than staying silent. The audience murmurs in agreement. Sarah tries to soften things. I actually think what Harrison's saying is about intention versus impact. Sunny nods. Yes, but impact still matters. Harrison turns slightly toward Sunny. Of course it does. But if impact is all that matters, then intent becomes irrelevant. And that's dangerous. Sunny raises an eyebrow. Dangerous to who? Harrison doesn't hesitate. To discourse. To trust. To the idea that people can grow. Applause breaks out again, louder now. Whoopi taps the table. Okay, but here's where I struggle. You're saying people shut things down. But when people challenge you, you shut them down too. Harrison leans back, exhales slowly. No, I push back. Whoopi presses. You just said enough to me on my own show. The audience reacts with a low, oh. Harrison nods. Because you were talking over my intent. Whoopi's tone sharpens. I wasn't. Harrison keeps his voice level. You were telling me what I meant instead of asking. There's a pause. The kind that makes producers nervous. Whoopi looks at him for a long moment. You know, people don't usually talk to me like that. A few nervous laughs from the crowd. Harrison replies quietly, I'm not people. I'm me. The audience claps again, some standing now. Whoopi exhales, leans back. All right. But you have to understand, this table has had generations of voices who didn't get to speak. Harrison nods. And I respect that. Deeply. She gestures toward him. But sometimes when you speak, It feels like you're closing the door behind you. Harrison's expression shifts, less defensive, more serious. If anyone feels that way, that's not my intention. But I won't pretend to be someone I'm not to reassure them. Sunny crosses her arms. But why not listen more? Harrison answers instantly. I do. Listening doesn't mean agreeing. Audience applause punctuates the sentence. Joy laughs lightly. You're stubborn. Harrison smiles faintly. That's not news. Even Whoopi smiles at that, just a little. But she presses on. Here's my concern. When powerful voices say, I'm just being honest, it can sound like an excuse not to adapt. Harrison leans forward again, elbows on the table. Adaptation doesn't mean surrendering clarity. Whoopi replies, it means evolving. Harrison nods. And evolution requires friction. The audience responds strongly to that line. Sunny tilts her head. But do you ever worry your tone alienates people who could be allies? Harrison considers this longer than before. Sure. I worry about that. The room stills. He continues. But I worry more about lying to them. A wave of applause follows. Whoopi sighs, looks down at her notes, then back up. You're very comfortable being unpopular. Harrison shrugs. I'm comfortable being honest. Whoopi says pointedly. Those aren't always the same. Harrison meets her gaze. They should be. The audience reacts again, some cheers, some murmurs. Sarah tries to bridge the gap. Maybe what we're seeing is frustration on all sides. Whoopi nods. Yes, and frustration can sound like dismissal. Harrison shakes his head. Or urgency. That word hangs in the air. Whoopi leans back, folds her arms again. Urgency about what, exactly? Harrison looks around the table, then at the audience. About losing the ability to disagree without demonizing each other. The crowd applauds, louder than before. Sunny glances toward Whoopi. I think he has a point there. Whoopi looks surprised. You do? Sunny nods. I don't agree with everything, but I hear what he's saying. The energy shifts slightly. Less combative, but still charged. Whoopi turns back to Harrison. You know, part of my job is to challenge guests. Harrison nods. And part of mine is to respond. She raises an eyebrow. Even when it gets uncomfortable? He smiles, just barely. Especially then. The audience laughs and claps. Whoopi laughs too, shaking her head. You are something else. Harrison replies dryly, I've been told. The tension eases, but not fully. There's still something unresolved, sitting between them. Whoopi glances off camera briefly, likely getting cues. All right, we're going to continue this. Harrison looks at her. Good. She adds, because I'm not done either. Harrison nods. I wouldn't expect you to be. The audience cheers, sensing the storm hasn't passed, only paused. The audience applause fades into a low buzz, the kind that tells everyone watching that this conversation has crossed into something rawer than the usual daytime exchange. Whoopi adjusts in her chair, glances briefly toward the producer's table, then back to Harrison. All right, she says measured. We're staying right here with this. Harrison nods, calm but clearly locked in. Whoopi continues. You keep talking about disagreement and honesty. But let's be real. Some people don't feel safe speaking up when voices like yours dominate the room. Harrison listens without interrupting this time, hands folded loosely. When she finishes, he responds evenly. I don't want to dominate any room. I want to participate in it. Sunny leans forward. But power doesn't disappear just because you don't intend to use it. Harrison turns to her. No, but silence doesn't fix that either. The audience murmurs again, split. Joy jumps in, a little sharper now. But don't you think sometimes your bluntness shuts people down? Harrison looks at Joy. Only if honesty is interpreted as hostility. Whoopi interjects quickly. That's easy to say when you're not on the receiving end. Harrison looks back at her. I've been on the receiving end my entire career. That gets a reaction, some laughs, some nods. Whoopi raises a hand. Criticism isn't the same as marginalization. Harrison nods. Agreed. But being misunderstood repeatedly isn't nothing either. Sarah shifts forward. Can I ask something? She waits for a nod. Do you feel like people come into conversations already assuming your position? Harrison answers immediately. Yes. Sarah presses gently. And does that make you defensive? Harrison exhales. It makes me tired. That lands differently. The room softens just a fraction. Sunny looks at him. Tired how? Harrison pauses. Tired of being told what I think instead of being asked. Whoopi tilts her head. But sometimes people hear patterns. Harrison responds. Patterns can be misleading when they ignore context. Whoopi leans forward. Okay, let me be very direct with you then. The audience quiets again. She says, when you criticize how people talk about social issues, it can sound like you're minimizing pain. Harrison's jaw tightens slightly. I'm criticizing how conversations get weaponized. Whoopi replies, by who? Harrison answers without hesitation. By everyone. Across the board. Joy scoffs lightly. That sounds like a cop-out. Harrison looks at her. It's not. It's accountability. Joy pushes back. But when everyone's responsible, no one is. Harrison shakes his head. When everyone's responsible, everyone has work to do. The audience applauds strongly again. Whoopi sighs. You know, you're very good at flipping things. Harrison smiles faintly. I've had practice. Whoopi doesn't smile back this time. But do you see how that can feel dismissive? Harrison leans in again. Do you see how constant reframing can feel like deflection? There it is again, that edge. The audience reacts loudly, some clapping, some gasping. Sunny raises her voice slightly. Okay, but we're talking in circles now. Whoopi nods. Yeah, because we're not getting to the heart of it. She turns fully toward Harrison. Do you believe there are conversations you're not equipped to lead? Harrison doesn't flinch. Absolutely. Whoopi's eyebrows lift. Then why insist on being so forceful in them? Harrison answers quietly. Because silence is often mistaken for agreement. The audience grows louder again. Whoopi crosses her arms. You could listen without speaking. Harrison meets her gaze. And you could ask without assuming. The tension spikes sharply. Even Joy looks toward Whoopi, unsure. Whoopi exhales through her nose. You really don't back down. Harrison replies, I don't escalate either. Whoopi responds quickly. You did earlier. Harrison shakes his head. I set a boundary. Whoopi's voice tightens. On live TV. Harrison nods. Respect doesn't pause for commercials. The audience erupts, full applause, some whistles. Whoopi raises her hands. Okay. She waits for the noise to die down. But understand this show is about dialogue. Harrison responds immediately. So let me have mine without being reframed. Whoopi stares at him for a moment, then says slowly, You know, people don't usually challenge me like this at this table. Harrison answers calmly, Then maybe it's overdue. The studio explodes. This time the applause is mixed with audible shock. Sunny covers her mouth briefly, then lowers her hand. Wow! Joy mutters, Oh boy. Whoopi's eyes narrow, but she keeps her composure. That's a bold thing to say. Harrison nods. It's an honest one. Whoopi shakes her head, half smiling, half annoyed. You came ready. Harrison replies, I came open. Whoopi fires back. Open doesn't mean immovable. Harrison responds, Neither does strong. Another wave of applause crashes through the room. Sarah looks between them. I think what's happening is both of you are talking about respect, but defining it differently. Whoopi nods slowly. That might be true. Harrison agrees. I think so. Sunny adds, and neither of you wants to feel dismissed. Whoopi looks at Harrison. Do you feel dismissed? Harrison answers after a beat. Earlier? Yes. Whoopi exhales, the edge in her shoulders easing just a bit. That wasn't my intention. Harrison nods. I believe you. That simple exchange changes the air. The audience reacts softly this time. More relief than excitement. Whoopi says, But I still don't agree with you on everything. Harrison smiles faintly. I'd be disappointed if you did. A few laughs ripple through the crowd. Whoopi chuckles despite herself. You're impossible. Harrison replies, I've been called worse. Whoopi glances toward the camera again. We're going to take a quick break. She pauses, then adds pointedly, But when we come back, we're finishing this. Harrison nods. Good. The audience applauds as the camera slowly pulls back, everyone knowing this conversation isn't cooling down. It's heading somewhere decisive. The applause carries them into the break and spills right back out when the cameras return. You can hear it before anyone speaks, louder, more charged, like the audience knows they're watching something that won't be forgotten by lunchtime. Whoopi settles into her chair, exhales, then looks straight at Harrison. All right, we're back. And yes, we're finishing this. Harrison nods, relaxed but alert, like someone who's already said what he needed to say, but isn't backing away from it. Whoopi continues, slower now. I want to be clear. When you said enough earlier, that caught me off guard. Harrison responds calmly. I could tell. A few nervous laughs ripple through the audience. Whoopi adds, But But I also want to be clear that I don't think you were trying to disrespect me. Harrison inclines his head. I wasn't. She looks at him. I think you were drawing a line. Harrison answers simply. Yes. The audience reacts with a mix of applause and murmurs. Less explosive now, more thoughtful. Whoopi continues. Here's what bothered me. This table represents people who didn't always get to draw lines. Harrison nods slowly. And I respect that. Truly. She watches him for a moment. But respect goes both ways. Harrison replies without hesitation. That's all I was asking for. Sonny leans in. Do you see how that moment could have felt dismissive to viewers? Harrison considers it. I can see how it might look that way. I don't love that. But I won't apologize for setting a boundary. Some applause, scattered but sincere. Joy sighs. You really are old school. Harrison smiles faintly. I'm consistent. That gets a bigger laugh. Sarah jumps in. I think what made this tense is that we're all talking about listening, but no one wants to feel talked over. Whoopi nods. That's fair. She turns back to Harrison. Do you think you could have said it differently? Harrison thinks for a beat. Probably. But in the moment, I said what felt honest. Whoopi responds. Honesty without reflection can sting. Harrison replies. Reflection without honesty can stall. The audience applauds again, louder this time. Whoopi shakes her head, smiling despite herself. You don't miss. Harrison says dryly. I miss all the time. Just not today. Laughter breaks out across the studio. Whoopi leans forward, elbows on the table. Let me ask you one last thing. Do you think conversations like this are worth the discomfort they cause? Harrison answers immediately. Yes. She presses. Even when they go sideways? Harrison nods. Especially then. The audience applauds strongly, several people standing. Whoopi takes that in, then nods slowly. I don't agree with you on everything. Harrison smiles. I know, she adds, but I respect that you didn't come here to play safe. Harrison replies, I respect that you didn't shut it down. That line lands. The audience reaction is warm, sustained. Whoopi chuckles. Well, don't get used to that. Harrison laughs softly. I wouldn't dare. The tension finally loosens, replaced by something closer to mutual acknowledgement. Whoopi turns toward the camera. This is what live television looks like. Applause. She adds, you don't have to agree, but you do have to listen. More applause. As the segment wraps, the camera pulls back slightly. You can see the hosts exchanging looks, producers signaling from off-camera, the audience still buzzing. Harrison thanks them quietly as the applause continues, standing briefly before sitting back down. When the show ends, the energy doesn't die. Staffers cluster around the table. Whoopi and Harrison exchange a few words off mic. No smiles at first, then a nod, then a brief handshake that cameras catch just long enough to spark speculation. Within minutes, clips flood social media. Harrison Ford just said enough to Whoopi Goldberg live. Harrison Ford wasn't wrong. Whoopi held her ground. Finally, a real conversation on daytime TV. The comments explode. Some praise Harrison for drawing boundaries. Others accuse him of dismissiveness. Many applaud Whoopi for standing firm and not cutting the conversation short. Hashtags trend. Debate clips rack up millions of views by nightfall. By evening, entertainment outlets are calling it one of the most intense moments of the season. Panel discussions spin off from it. Opinion pieces dissect tone, power, intent. Fans argue, agree, disagree. Exactly what Harrison said he wanted, a real conversation. The next day, Whoopi opens the show by acknowledging it. Yesterday was heated, she says. But it was honest. Harrison, meanwhile, releases a short statement. Disagreement doesn't have to be disrespect. I appreciate the conversation, even the uncomfortable parts. The moment lives on, not as a shouting match, but as something rarer. A live exchange where no one walked away clean, but no one walked away silent either. And now we want to hear from you. What did you think about Harrison Ford shutting down Whoopi Goldberg? Was he right to say enough? Or did he cross a line? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more real talk show stories.